Hello, precious humans. I'm Jamie Dawn, your evolutionary revolutionary astrologer, bringing you your celestial wisdom for the next 2 weeks. And part of that, for those of you who follow me, understand that I was serving in my role as staff director for Nine Gates Mystery School, and we just finished a part one, and it was 2 weeks, and it was just absolutely magical and challenging and wonderful, and working with people that I love and that I can say they're my friends, which is such a gift, just like you guys are. And I just want to put a little pin on the map for you to understand a little deeper that this particular it's an experiential school, is one that offers an invitation every time I show up to deepen my practices, to transform my stuck thinking, to transform myself from the inside out so that I can be of greater service for you guys. And I just want you to know that that is the underlying motivation for me, offering videos and horoscopes and being of service in our sessions, things like that. So if at any time you need added support, just know I'm here. And if I'm not available, I know some really great people that can also assist you. So I just want to say that we really are now, especially in a time where community and coming together and working together makes all the difference in the world. As I like to say, because most people are like, oh, you don't need me, you're so independent. I am. I'm a very independent, free spirit. However, it's much more fun partnering with people and doing things with people. So yes, we're great on our own, but it's so much better when we can join hands with each other and just say, let's have an experience together, because experience is our greatest teacher. So let me jump in. This is part of the reason I'm setting us up for saying that this video is going to encompass the next 2 weeks, all the way to the Mercury stationing and going retrograde on the 27th of September. We have a lot to cover. Stay with me. If you want to, you can, fast forward through different timestamps, that sort of thing. But we're going to talk about Venus in Scorpio because she entered Scorpio last week. We also have Mars in Libra. We have a Pisces full moon. And as I mentioned, Mercury is in shadow right now, both stationing going retrograde. But then we also have the fall equinox with the sun transiting out of Virgo and into Libra. So we're in Libra season. Happy birthday to the final ending, if you will, or degrees of Virgo, and happy birthday to those Libras who were born in the month of September and October. So let's talk first about Venus and Scorpio. Why? Because this is now a very dominant Venus-themed kind of couple of weeks. And I'm going to kind of bob and weave here between some of the different aspects and what's happening. But the Pisces full moon is going to have a really healing, beautiful opening for us to move into 2 days later, the spring equinox, which is where the sun moves into Libra. And Libra is traditionally ruled by Venus. The moon on this day will also move into Taurus, which is Venus ruled. Now, the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, so it's not uncommon that the sign of that the moon is in is changing so rapidly. But this is a marked point that I just want to put a little more emphasis under, especially because Venus in the water sign of Scorpio will be making a wonderful sextile to this moon. So we've got this really powerful Venusian kind of theme being set up for us. And I think that's also going to be important because, again, Mars in Libra, Libra being Venus ruled, adds an intensity to the Venusian qualities. So we're thinking about things like beauty and harmony and peace and relationships. Venus is how we attract, of who we're attracted to when it comes to the romantic nature. That's right. It's not necessarily about sex as much as it's about the attraction of what do we find that we are connecting with another person, situation, things like that. And that it triggers for us this like, ooh, I want more of that. And that's where Mars comes in and drives us and penetrates, if you will, beyond the desire and into the action. So here's Venus being very open, very encompassing, very feminine, right? So, and you know, she loves beauty. She loves the harmony. She loves values, though. And what you'll find in the reason that Venus is associated with values is that you find where you spend your resources, time, money, energy is going to show you what you value. And Venus here presents opportunities for us to explore that. Now, in the sign of Scorpio, these opportunities or the things that we're going to be attracted to may be things like diving into love. We're not going to hold back. We may want to grab on to somebody. Anybody knows that Scorpio energy, it's intense. It can even be borderline obsessive. That's the shadow side, or controlling if we're not careful. But there's passion and there's verve and there's all kinds of desire here being stirred up. And part of that desire is I want to create and I want to form these really strong emotional bonds. I want that experience. So what we may be attracted to and the way in which we express our love. So this is the love languages, also the Venusian energy. The way we may express our love language could be done very intensely during this time. It's also possible that the shadow side of the Scorpio energy comes in where maybe there's a secret relationship or secrets in a relationship come out. Could be that you're hiding things like finances or the things that you value most. You may have to hide it for good reasons. This is the time where you may be really protective, and privacy is a huge thing during Venus in Scorpio. And so you may find that the shadow side is a lot of investigating goes on, paranoia kicks in, and you start feeling like you have to hide everything because maybe you don't trust somebody else. You don't trust what's happening. Now, I'm going to stick with the lighter side so that we can keep paving the way here for us to stay empowered and to continue to transform our lives from a beautiful way. And that is when we're looking at the intensity and the investigating of what Scorpio loves to do, it's so we can get to the deeper, more intimate pieces of the relationship or the financial situation or the values that we hold. And in doing so, it requires trust. And so we may be really driven or attracted, and I'm using the word driven here, even though that's associated more with Mars, but there's a motivation here of this attraction, that we may be more attracted to people who help us feel safe. Now that seems like an obvious, but there is a mentality sometimes where we just throw caution to the wind and we're like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to go with it. I'm not going to trust. I can't tell you how many times I've said it and I've heard it said, oh, I don't trust easily in relationships. And part of that is that we haven't learned how to really trust ourselves. We've been taught to cast off any ideas of checking in with ourselves and being selfish, if you will. And then we lose the trust that we could have built in ourselves because we didn't take time to find out what we need. And so this is the beauty of Venus in Scorpio, is that we can really work with coming back to trusting ourselves and to being really intimate with who we ultimately are. And this intimacy is going to continue to be a common theme for us, because when we've got Mercury, Mars, the Sun, all in Libra, then it intensifies this wonderful desire for relationship and this desire for connection and camaraderie. And it's very difficult. Libra doesn't mind the surfacey networking kind of stuff, but when you've got this underlying Scorpio energy coming in, we're not going to take these relationships and connections lightly, as light as we could. We're going to want to say, hey, I can small talk and I can connect with you, but I want more than that. This is a perfect time for those of you who are focusing on relationships and love, particularly romance, and wanting to either find that right partnership, or maybe you started dating somebody and you're wanting to find out who they really are. This is a time that could get triggered for that. Now, I'm going to move into Mars in Libra. This energy of Mars in Libra, Mars is at its fall. It does not, it's not at its strongest when it's in Libra, but the gift of Mars in Libra makes it so that we're not as domineering, we're not as, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me. But we're not so aggressive. That's the word. We become more passive in our communication. And so what that can lead us to is that instead of triggering the shadow side of this Venus in Scorpio, it can actually help us to pause and reflect a little bit and to maybe think a bit more before we take action. And that helps to build more trust and intimacy, because we're not scaring off the other person. Hey, we need to talk. It's going to be, hey, I have a problem to solve and I'd love to solve it with you. And so we're going to be driven to find solutions to a situation. We're also going to be looking at creating win-win situations. So again, more collaboration. Now, it's possible we may worry about causing trouble and avoiding conflict when Mars is in Libra. However, I would say that if we're willing to walk through a little bit of that fear around not creating waves, that we become great conflict managers. And we're able to even predict when trouble's about to happen before it happens, giving us the ability to be able to strategize and see a bigger picture. And in doing so, we give the warning, creating more trust. It's like, hey, guys, I can feel this. I see where this is going. I see the gap, or I see the pitfalls that could come with this relationship or this project or whatever it might be. So let's do a bit of prevention here. Let's collaborate on that, create a win-win, and allow ourselves a little bit of time and space, thank you, Mercury retrograde, to be able to let more information bubble to the surface. Now, with this Pisces full moon on the 20th, like I say, this is going to be a very healing, very beautiful full moon. But let me just put a few little things in here. Because the moon is connected to our intuition, it's connected to our subconscious habits, it's the things that we need in order to nurture ourselves, or the things we need to feel really good, or that we nurture, ways in which we nurture others. And with that being said, Pisces and the moon are very sensitive. So it's possible we could be extra sensitive. We could be on empathy overload. There's a lot of things that could show up psychically. And those of you who play in the psychic world, you understand this, that it's like a hit that comes in, or a feeling, or a word that you hear, or a name, or whatever, right? Or you see this vision and you're not always sure exactly what it is, because it could just be a piece. You know, like one of my girlfriends was saying, you know, she goes, oh, I just got this vision of a wolf and it's pacing around the exterior of this camp, this village, this camp. And she goes, I don't know what it means. Well, then later in that evening, a situation occurred where she was being protected, but also it felt like wolves were at her feet and coming after her. So it was that mixed bag. So it gave her a symbol that she was able to, she didn't know quite what it meant at the time, but it revealed itself. So this is going to be super double, triple heightened during this full moon in Pisces. That's why I'm bringing it up. And because if we do allow ourselves to spend that little extra time paying attention to the sensitivities, paying attention to the energies that show up, we will be able to receive dreams, symbols, situation, messages that we need in order to respond, or to be able to deepen our conversations, or release the things that are no longer serving us. This is a perfect releasing full moon, because Pisces has a tendency to absorb everything around them. And like a sponge, it needs to wring itself out. And a full moon is all about releasing. I'll even invite us all to think back to the new moon that occurred in March, the Pisces new moon. and the themes that you may have, or intentions that you set at that new moon back in March, they are showing their fruition now, and that it may culminate to be finally either released out into the world or completed, or there's a, let's say, look at it like phases. Maybe phase 1 is done and you're going to be ready to move to phase 2. Those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at. Enlightenment, spirituality, compassion, and releasing any toxicity, anything that's toxic in your life. This is a great full moon for it. Now, Pisces is also ruled by Neptune. Neptune is associated with escapism. It's associated with illusion, but it's also associated, think of, the water that fills in every gap. It's the seas, it's the ocean, right? It's expansive and it's vast. And so what we can also look at is we may need to release certain things that are way too expansive. Maybe we've gotten too much in one direction. And with all this beautiful Libra energy, we need to bring it back into balance. And so this full moon can support that, where it's like, maybe I need to release, drinking alcohol for a while or forever, right? Or smoking, or maybe I need to release this particular codependency that I have set up with this person. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship has to end, maybe just the dynamics of that relationship ends. And so those are the kind of things. We're also looking at patterns in our lives that are happening unconsciously that may come to light, and then we are able to release that pattern and start something new. The other thing we're going to look at, of course, is Mercury. Still, it's in shadow until the 27th when it stations to retrograde in Libra. And we're going to be looking at communication. We're going to be looking at thought process. We're going to be looking at the way in which we organize information, or really learn about things, but also maybe short distance travel, things like that. Now, it is pretty common during a Mercury retrograde, which happens 3 times a year, but it's pretty common that there's communication and technology breakdowns, that there's nervous anxiety, travel delays, and that, yes, sometimes things get lost. Keys, purses, wallets, that sort of thing. I would offer that this particular Mercury retrograde, it's going to either be really great or really intense, really extreme. And the reason I say that is Mercury is going to be trining Jupiter. It'll be exact a couple of times while it's retrograding and moving direct again, but it's going to stay in a close enough orb with Jupiter throughout the entire retrograde time that whatever Jupiter touches, it expands. So if we allow our mind and our communication to go off the rails, or we allow it to go into this overthinking and passivity, we may never get anything done that we want to get done. So because Jupiter is just going to keep expanding and energizing it, right? Now, the gift of this is that we could have larger than life ideas that could be a really great opportunity to expand our relationships, our careers, our, family life, whatever it might be, our belief systems. And I will say that it's possible that our social calendar, because Libra loves to socialize, that our social calendar could explode, and we could have so many things on there and we're striving, because we have all this Libra energy, we're striving for balance. It may be difficult to keep up with. I still have to work, but I want to socialize. And now I have a work social that I have to go to. So it's like this constant activity, which could exhaust our adrenals. It can exhaust our minds. It can exhaust our bodies if we're not careful. So we want to keep coming back to checking in on that. The other thing is Mercury's going to be squaring Pluto during this time as well. Pluto's still in Capricorn in the late degrees. So we could also have intense conversations. Well, what happens with intense conversations? If they don't go the right direction, and you've got Jupiter and Aquarius expanding this know-it-all kind of mentality, then these intense conversations turns into convincing, converting, dominating, dogma, all of that sort of thing that could come in. Now, the gift of this Mercury squaring off with Pluto is these kind of conversations could be transformative. because it may bring out an opportunity to discuss the things that scare us the most or the things that we feel powerless to. But in this challenging time, if you're willing to keep inviting others to collaborate, keep inviting others to share their ideas, staying open-minded, which is the beautiful trine of Mercury and Jupiter, is that you can find that whatever you agree to and whatever shows up actually is 10 times better than you ever thought. I think of the Tower card in the tarot deck. Most people get so afraid when they see it, and they're like, great, my whole life is going to go to hell in a handbasket. I'm going to have a dark night of the soul and I'll never make it out. And oh my God, everything. And what I can tell you, the gift of the Tower isn't that your whole life goes to shit. It's that you get to take a particular area, a particular mindset, a particular situation, whatever it might be, and you get to strip it down and rebuild it. Doesn't mean it has to go away. But if you think about it, you have to ask yourself, what serves? Does this still serve me? Does this still feel fair and balanced in my life? Does it still bring harmony to me? And with the square going on, there's tension. So it's going to be a pain point for you of being able to say, I've got to do this particular thing differently than I've done before. Now, it can also, during this time, make us easily defensive. So if somebody's challenging our ideas, it could cause us to feel powerless, which then can cause us to feel defensive. I'm going to offer this. If we are not attached to our personal agenda, then we won't get defensive, because our agenda becomes suggestions versus dogma. And I say that using the term agenda, but expectations go along with it. If we get easily offended by others, it's because we're so attached to how we show up, or having our idea heard, or being better than, or whatever that identity starts to show up. If we can let our expectations, it's like we go to a meeting and we're trying to, or we're going to a conversation, we're trying to convince somebody my way, or my way of looking at this or doing this is the right way, then it's going to be very easy for us to get offended and defend what we think is right, because we've already decided this is the way it's going to be. And I bring this up because with the Libra energy, Libra loves peace. It loves harmony. It wants everybody to kumbaya and get along, but we can't have peace without war. Now it comes back to picking and choosing our battles. So with the sun moving into Libra on the 22nd, as I mentioned, and the moon in Taurus, we have more of this Venusian theme. So I'm going to look at Venus in Scorpio to be able to say, I really want to have this balance, this fairness, and I want to be able to nurture myself and others in a very practical, tangible way. Now I can show them how much I love them. I can show others how passionate I am about this project, or how passionate I am about life, whatever it is. And that can create strong emotional bonds. And the only way that people will trust me is if I stay in my integrity. And that's going to be a big theme for us, is that we're going to be looking at all those areas in our life where we have to stay in our integrity, that we choose to do the right thing, not necessarily doing it because we're afraid it's the wrong thing. If we do things because it's the right thing to do versus the fear of getting something wrong or making a mistake, you're not going to go wrong. We're going to be looking at, on this fall equinox with the sun in Libra. And so throughout the rest of September and into October, we're going to be looking at things like duality, contrast. Without that contrast, without that duality, it's hard to have an awareness. How do I know I exist if I don't get something reflecting back to me, right? It's a pretty lonely place to just stay internalized. We need to have the reflection. We need to have the opposite looking back at us so that we can say, hey, let me switch sides. Let me come over and see the other side of that, and you experience my side. oh, now I have greater compassion. Now I have greater sympathy. Now I have greater understanding as to what you may be walking through or what you may be experiencing. And now you see my side of it. Now, in this container that's between us, we can create something really beautiful. And that's what this Libra energy wants. It wants beauty. It wants that harmony. It wants creative expression that has a bit of lightness to it. We're looking for justice and fairness. So we may be faced with situations that are unfair, and we start to say, hey, how do we come to the negotiating table? How do we take this particular situation and we make it so that it's fair for everybody? Doesn't necessarily mean it's the same, but it allows every unique individual in expression to feel as though they are included and valid. There's also a lot of really good listening that can come on board here. Now, the one thing I haven't addressed, and this is what is triggering me to address it now, about the listening. Mercury in Libra retrograde, all about relationships. That's a big theme. And with the retrograde, relationships and subject matters from the past coming back for us to revisit and redo. That doesn't necessarily mean that an ex-lover will show up, but it could. And with Venus and Scorpio, you're going to want to get to the bottom of why did that end like that? Or what have you been doing? Or why now? I mean, there's going to be all kinds of questionings that show up here. It could be that your partner, if you're partnered with somebody, and let's say, use that scenario, an ex-lover shows up, they're going to be like, what do they want? Why are they here now? That sort of thing. There's also, if you are in a bonded relationship, this is a perfect opportunity to revisit certain subject matters that may have been a little taboo at the time for you to talk about. And I'm not talking about just sex, but that could be part of it too. This could really deepen your interaction with your partner or your lover or whatever. And it can give you some chicka chicka bow wow in the bedroom, which would be kind of nice, right, for you guys. So there's some of that in there. But if you are having to revisit a difficult or intense subject, this is a good time to take your time to review it, to ask a lot of questions, to compromise where you need to compromise, and staying in your integrity. Because one of the things, and I've said this before, I'll just keep reminding you, especially if you're new to watching my videos, when we're making decisions, if we stay in alignment with our values, we can have peace at night regardless of the outcome, because the outcome is not controllable. What we can control is I checked in with my values, I stayed in my integrity, I did what I thought was right, and then the rest shakes out. Some of you have mentioned to me about, I just don't want to hurt anybody. I'm going to offer it this way. Get over that, folks. You're going to hurt people. We all do. It's the intentional hurting of others that we're trying to work with. That's what we don't want to do. But we are going to hurt others. And when we do, we need to take ownership and apologize. And that's how we learn. At the same time, keep in mind as well, and I offer this for these deeper, intense relationship conversations, especially those of you who are struggling. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I want this to add this to the relationship? Do I want to let it go? If you're in that place, if your agenda, what you feel is right for you, when I say agenda, what you feel is right for you and your values do not line up with what somebody else expects of you, you're going to hurt them. Not intentionally, but it's because their perception of you is different than what you actually are or who you actually are. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to try and say it this way. If your expectations and their expectations are not in alignment, it's going to feel like you're hurting each other. So that's why I offer to you, come to the table without attachment, but definitely hold your boundaries, because healthy boundaries are crucial. That's what this full moon in Pisces is going to bring to light. Where have you compromised or given away or had no boundaries over that need to be reset? And because maybe it has caused addiction, maybe it has caused confusion and miscommunication and lack of clarity, which only adds complications to our relationships or to ourselves or our decision-making process. So use these next couple of weeks to find greater clarity, but it's going to take time because with Mercury in shadow and then retrograde, not everything is as it appears to be. So we're going to need to keep asking those deeper questions and staying non-attached to whatever the outcome might be. All right, you guys, I know it was a lot. It's a long video. I really appreciate those of you who have watched this whole thing. And even if you just come back and look at it, but like, subscribe, share, comment. I'm always here for you any way I can be. Find me at jamiedawn.com. I love to know how it's going. All right, you guys, have a great 2 weeks.